Welcome to this week's episode of Does That Make Sense? This week, Antoinette, we're talking to the founder of I'm Just a Man, which is a charity that supports and raises awareness for men's mental health.
It's a really important conversation, Amanda, but what I love the most is that they approach the topic in such a dynamic and universal way. It's incredible. Shall we get started?
Let's do it. Welcome to the show, Jim Skivalidas, founder of I'm Just a Man. So, Jim, tell us about I'm Just a Man. And look, you're actually a holistic chiropractor, and that's what you do as a living. But you've started up this charity, I'm Just a Man. Can you tell us more about it and how it started?
I went through an experience about 7 years ago where I woke up to a phone call from my brother. It was about 6:45 in the morning to tell me that my chiropractic clinic roof was on fire. And I was like, oh yeah, man, just jump in the house, smash the door and get the fire extinguishers and sort it out. And he was like, no, you don't realise your roof's on fire. And as he said that, I had this horrible thought, and it was what I saw when I arrived 20 minutes later, that the entire clinic was engulfed in fire from the roof, and that was it. I knew I couldn't work that day. Fast forward from that moment, there's some missing parts which I'll share later, but one of my sort of ways where I found sanity for me was I turned to music, and particularly fell in love with singing, and discovered what it was like to be a frontman in a band. It was like the weirdest thing to do when you're 42 years of age. And I was suggested through someone through my B&I business groups. And what had happened was one of my rock mentors, Chris Cornell, took his life, suicided.
Oh, wow.
And I went, oh, that's a bit weird. Why am I finding music and this guy's taking his life? And then about 2 months later is where I went to Queensland and I met Kirk Pengilly from INXS.
Right.
And he started telling me a little bit about how he's worked in the mental health space through Movember. And it was that moment, meeting him, and then another guy suicided, which was Chris Cornell's a godson to one of Cornell's children, which was Chester Bennington, that I had this vision of going, well, I just heard this song from INXS called I'm Just a Man. I just rediscovered it, because that's where it comes from. It's a song. Yeah. And in that song, Michael Hutchence is being really open and vulnerable. He talks about his mum, his dad, and his brother and sister. And I thought, well, that's all of us. We all have a mum and dad, love them or hate them, and siblings or friends. And then I thought, well, that's the essence. Maybe I need to put something together that has music and mental health. So that's kind of how it was born. And it wasn't something that I planned on, but I think it was that time, 7 years ago, that I realised that following morning after the fire that I had what's called suicide ideation. I had the idea of not sticking around, basically. Mm-hmm. And I was very surprised that I had that, experience. And I didn't remember that till 2.5 years later. So it wasn't something that I had any recollective thoughts until 2017, which was the time when I thought I've got to put on an event around this concept, around mental health and suicide, and creating an awareness.
And bringing music into the picture. And, music is a universal language, so it doesn't matter where you are or what parts of the world you are from. It is a universal language. I'm very big into music myself, come from quite a large family within the music world, so I can certainly relate to that.
Do you know what it was, Antoinette? It was like, because I had when I say rediscovered music, I discovered the ability to be in a band, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, how do we take this concept of mental health and music and throw it on its head? That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, here are all these musicians that have taken their lives. We have the event around Michael Hutchence's anniversary. We don't remember him. The whole idea is not to, glorify the passing death, but more to honour what people are all about. Yep. And music is the glue that brings us together, I think, with I'm Just a Man. And we've got obviously all these other big objectives and visions and missions, but it was the whole idea of like, how can we have something fun? And part of the fun part is the music, at least. And then on the other side, you've got this heavy topic of mental health. Yeah. They're opposite sides, but we somehow make it work in the magic of I'm Just a Man.
So look, when your business, burnt down and like a lot of people will relate to this right now, because I think a lot of people have lost their businesses through the pandemic. So was there anyone there to help you? What happened? So how did you start trading? Like where were you at? From
the time of the fire, which was Monday morning, the 24th of November, within 9 days, I started trading again, which was, it was unbelievable, that part. When I think about who was around me, like community-wise, definitely, my wife, my sister, my brother, my mum, they were more present. I can't say that they were just to have them around was very important for me. I think because I'm part of a network called BNI and Business Community, that was a massive support.
Right, yeah.
So, and that I saw how my accountant, the graphic designer, the printing business cards, the commercial lawyer is the one that got me into the music. All those people rallied around me, and it's going to be all right. They would say things like, "Oh, you're going to rise from the phoenix," all this kind of stuff. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but it was really, I felt that, I guess, a business or a financial community. And then I had a couple of best mates, and one of my best mates, Theo, he was there that morning. He came there. He spoke this year at I'm Just a Man. Had him there for the first time. He said things like, it's going to be all right, but he gave me the opportunity to work even in his clinic until I got myself set up.
Oh, wow.
And then it was that madness, there was these 9 days of dealing with the insurance company, because that was probably the greatest stress that I felt from it all.
Yes.
So then there was that kind of pressure of, okay, I want to get restarted again. My wife and mum are asking, and they know all this now, but I kept it from them at the time. They kept asking, how's everything going? Oh, it's all fine. I'm getting it sorted, when I wasn't fine, at least dealing with sort of the insurances. And then through support, like I said, the BNI, and then I also did a lot of personal development work over the years. So I kind of got stuck into my Dalai Lama stuff. I looked at some stuff from the Orthodox Greek Church growing up. A lot of work around Dr. John DeMartini was massive for me as well. So they were the kind of where I looked at the personal development. And then I reached out to different holistic practitioners to deal with any sort of unease that was in my head at that time. So there was lots going on.
Yes,
I can imagine.
Yeah. And I think that sense of community is something that's so important. And look, I belong to a business network as well. And it's too early in the morning for Antoinette. She can't do sort of mornings, but she's always like, how do you get up that early and do that? She's like the burn the midnight oil kind of work business owner. You've got different types,
so
ones that start early.
In you as well, midnight oil.
But I really, one of the things I found I had a really big client that was leaving me, and I sort of really needed to expand my business, and I joined just going, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'll give it a go. And you're right about that sense of community that I really felt from it. Like it was, because when you're a business owner, often it's a really lonely thing. You don't have like the co-workers, you're not talking at the water cooler. And look, even for people that all of a sudden have been working from home, they've missed that interaction as well. So that sense of community, and finding community wherever you find it, is really important, isn't it? So
you need a tribe. It's good to be part of a tribe.
Oh,
it is.
Well, as they say, it takes a village, doesn't it? So
it does. And, to go back on what you said about, the pandemic, it's funny, I saw that in the beginning last year around March, April, because there was a suddenness to it, and it wasn't like something that took 3 months. It really was sudden in the space of 2, 3, 4 weeks. And I'm like, oh, this is horrible, because I partly relived it, even though I was operational and clients weren't coming in. Obviously, I wasn't the only one going through it. Everyone went through that same craze. But then there were businesses that were not going to come back from it, you know, so they just weren't going to come back, particularly restaurant owners, maybe some gym owners as well,
So with your experience and you stepping back after you got to a place of where you're happier within yourself, is that when it was the pivotal moment of saying, look, I am going to start up this charity organisation, because if this happened to me, it could be happening to so many different men?
Yeah, so what had happened was, once obviously the clinic burns down, and then I re-established in a temporary spot 9 days later, and I was there for about 14 months. So I'm not ready there at that point. I had no idea about even doing this stuff. I moved into my new clinic, which I'm in now, which was in March of 2016.
Wow.
1st of April, I go to a jam session in North Melbourne and go, I'm going to try it. And the commercial lawyer from my BNI group's going, go and do this music thing. I thought, what a load of bullshit, man. Music stuff. I go, I like to listen to it, not be part of it. He goes, no, you've got to go and do that for yourself. So I went along, and before you knew it, I had ended up not only gigging in May in Richmond, I ended up in June in Los Angeles performing with one of my rock idols, which was Paul Stanley from Kiss.
Wow.
And then,
wow.
So that's kind of, and then I came back, and when I was there, I had this opportunity to record with a guy that had done stuff with Guns N' Roses. It was all weird. I didn't even expect any of these things to happen. So when I came back up, that was when I found an audio engineer, and I was recording all these songs by artists that had passed from suicide and mental health. And the guy goes, why are you doing all this? I go, I don't know, let's just do another one. And that's when Chris Cornell passed. So then when that happened in March of 2017, that's when I went, I've got to do something about it. So by the time when Chester took his life, which was in July, and I met Kirk Pengilly and went, I have to do something. That's a calling. I have to do music and mental health. So there was all these lead ups. It wasn't just it wasn't like, I'll do something for the boys. It was like, it was kind of this journey that I went through. And then I thought, well, I don't want to, it's one thing to act like a rock star, but it's another thing to really give back in the space.
Yeah.
And the event actually runs in November, and it's, obviously the last couple of years, as you mentioned, you've run an online event, so a Zoom event.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about the event and how it runs and some of the speakers you have at it, and, just give us a bit of a feel for that.
So I guess that one of the things that we worked out early on when we created I'm Just a Man, the inaugural event, it was like, how can we have an element of being fun? So that was, so from a dress-up perspective, I had guys and or girls dress up in their rock suits and a rock T-shirt, no shirts and ties allowed.
Yeah.
And face painting, by the way, there's face painting.
Yeah. And
the guys did get into it a lot in the second year, not so much the third.
Was everyone wearing Kiss makeup? Are we talking Kiss makeup? What are we talking about? You betcha.
There's Kiss makeup, David Bowie makeup. There's a lot of David Bowie makeup. So in our logo, there's a lightning bolt. One of the reasons I put that in there is not just the makeup. That's what caused the fire. It was an electrical fire.
Right. Okay.
So I'm like, I'm going to give myself a reminder constantly and say thank you. To always say thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the feel. And then the night then has an infusion between speakers, stories, and music. Mm-hmm. So the speakers somehow I don't even know how this happened, but I was introduced to a guy from the AFL. So now every year we have someone from the AFL, which is so atypical for a male in AFL to open up about being open and vulnerable. So that's a big key part of the night. We have people who share their stories, especially people that have had lived experience. So we've had mothers, mates, cousins. We had, last year was really sad. I had a friend of mine who his friend had done a big post on Are You OK Day about mental health, and then took his life a couple of weeks later. All that kind of stuff. It's important to raise that awareness. So that's kind of the mix of the night. And then we have the music, which will either be DJ, rock and roll, INXS inspired, where we lift the spirit on the night and have fun and booking.
Yeah.
So
and
that's kind of how the night runs.
You actually officially registered as a charity not so long ago, is that right? Or how did that work?
That's right, yeah. So I guess the first 3 years it was just an experience putting it together, and I think we fundraised close to 30 grand.
Wow.
Just gave it all to Beyond Blue, Movember, and Are You OK, and a few other charities. And then August last year, we became an official charity.
Right.
So a DGR2. So then it was like, well, now we can start creating our own footprint of what we are and what we want to leave behind in the space of not just charity, but more importantly, how can we keep bringing people together with the mental health concept?
And what's your main goals with your charity? What's your main objective?
So the main objective, I think, first is us raising the awareness. And we do it in a way where in our motto, like every year we've built on a motto, but one big one for us is men and women and humans side by side around men's mental health. But we acknowledge both. Like, we'll be doing a bit more around female mental health next year. But the main focus will still be men because the statistics are so crazy.
Yeah.
So even though they've talked about them being better the last 12 months, 75% of suicides around 40 countries in the world are males. So I don't know about that. That's still a pretty scary statistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, prior to us recording, we briefly spoke about men and mental health, and it's something that really resonates with me. And, I did speak to you about male magazines. A lot of it's all about fitness and health, but a lot of things aren't on the mental health element of it. And it really struck a chord with me because they just don't share, or they don't open up like women do. They're just not talking, and anything that can help bring that to light, that it's not something that you need to hide, or showing emotion, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It means you're strong, if anything. So how have you found with how men have embraced about sharing their journey, or how things have impacted them in terms of their mental health?
I think when you think of how I understand as a male, I guess, to bring up a topic like that straight off the bat, it's pretty tough, I think. So this is why I guess we have, for example, I think why the AFL part works really well, because a lot of males do resonate with AFL or sports, whether you love it or not, or hate it, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, and that's a fairly, traditionally has been quite blokey, we could say, yeah.
Alpha male.
So when again, this is my own perception. So when we see these blokes sharing, like we've had several speakers, like we've got one guy, Lance Baccioni from Love Me Love You Foundation. Mate, when he spoke, to me, when I see him, I feel his blokiness around me, a real strong male. But when you see him open up, it's like, well, that's really cool. So I think it's crediting that. And then the music part, the way I felt it worked for us is because we have that ability to have people wear a T-shirt, whether they wear the face painting is another thing, right? But if they got the T-shirt on, it creates a conversation. Hey, man, what are you wearing? Michael Jackson, whatever, right? Or INXS, Kiss, David Bowie, AC/DC. But then that starts the conversation. How did you get here? And then it opens up rather than straight into it, let's talk mental health. I don't think it's not me either. Like, I want to have a bit of fun with it. So I feel like it just drops the guard, and people relate a lot to sport, if not sport, definitely music. So that's where I felt it's been quite powerful.
It also gives them a safe environment to do so, because a lot of men, which I have found, I have 4 brothers. So I look at all the men that I know, it's the persona of, I need to be strong all the time. I need to be the backbone. I'm not allowed to have vulnerability. And I think that comes from a long time ago, generations raising boys of toughen up.
Totally.
Don't be like a girl. Don't cry like a sissy. All of these hard-hitting words.
Stereotypes,
exactly. It's, they grow up as men, and all of a sudden they are faced with very difficult situations, and emotionally they just don't know how to manage it. Where women, Amanda and I talk all the time. I have a problem, I ring her up.
Sure.
Have a gas bag. Where men they hold it in, they keep it close to them.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things if I can relate to that. Like, I grew up and we had suicide on my father's side.
Yep.
A bit of it. And, I was the same like the other guys. And I go, oh, what an idiot. Like, and I eat my words now. I eat my own words and go, how dare I even say that? But it's kind of like that male mentality. Then there's that, bravado, or, what does it mean to be a man? I was like, one really great example, I was a guy called Jeremy McVeigh from Movember, and he's got 3 beautiful daughters, and he goes, and this is just something I've learned he taught me this, I became more aware of it. And he said, and again, this is just a generalization, but he said something like, girls can, from how he understood, he's got 3 girls that they're born princesses, he goes, and they have a female role. But with males, this is where I think the tricky part is. You want the male to be tough and strong on one end, and then on the other end, you want him to be vulnerable and soft. Yeah. But if he's too soft, you're a wuss, mate. So there's a duality that exists in that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amongst men as well. You know, even with boys, it's like, you know, if you do show that vulnerability or being softer, it's you're under the thumb, or, you know, it's those sort of mentality. And it's like, well, no, that's not actually what it is.
Yeah.
It's
definitely a tricky space. But the biggest thing I got out of it was, for me, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a guy called Andrew Griffiths. Actually Bruce Frame introduced me to him.
Right.
And he helps people write books. But I'd seen him on a stage around 2014 or late 2013. Or 2014 it was before the fire, and he was being vulnerable, and I saw vulnerability. I was like, how does someone do that? You know, but until you're prepared to go into those deep spaces for yourself and own it, but also go, this is just who I am. It doesn't mean anything more or less.
Yeah.
That's what I felt is the powerful part. And I think when it comes to males, there's an identity thing that happens. I know with me on the fire, my identity got crushed. So what led me to have the idea of contemplating leaving planet Earth was I can't see patients now and earn income, not to be a rich man, but just to pay my bills.
To be a provider.
To be a provider. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of IVF at the time with my wife, and it's like, well, that's not going to happen. Can't have a kid. Now we've got a child. And then it was like, can't look after mum. I'm the eldest. I'm the caretaker.
Yeah.
You know, and then I had the thought of jumping off a bridge. Like, that's an identity crush. You know, and that all happened in a snap, all happened in 1 second, all what I just said. And I didn't remember that until 2.5 years later. So that was what made me go, if I can experience that, and I think I'm sane or whatever, I think I've got it together. I wonder what other people are like. And it's like, am I here to save lives? I'd love to think of more than that, but empowering lives and giving people permission. So you have the makeup and you have the face painting, you have the T-shirts to give guys permission.
Yeah.
To be themselves in all their flaws, you know.
Yeah. So. As well as teaching them and encouraging them to ask for help. So everything you've just said to Amanda and myself is that you were carrying everything on your shoulders, and you weren't saying, I need help. So you took that all and carried it. So you being able to help educate people, saying, we are a village. You don't need to carry everything. You've got all the support around you, is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did this year, this year was an amazing event, other than I didn't enjoy as much, but it had to be on Zoom, but that was fine. We actually started putting our own footprint. And one of the things that we had a blue box. It was called the 5 Gifts of Human Connection. And what we did is we unraveled the box together with 5 gifts, and we unwrapped it during the night. That was kind of the fun part of the night with some music. But one of the gifts we had was a journal, and it was a blank piece, and we said, this is not how you have to journal, but this is some ideas on how to journal and express yourself.
Yeah.
And it's important to express yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, also, you talked about particular speakers and sort of ambassadors or people that you really have come in. They're a great representation that can, you know, someone, like you said, that might appear quite macho, or like this person looks like they've got it together. I mean, look, even as a female, I notice that. Like, you'll see certain people and you'll think, oh, they've just really got it together. They're just like juggling the kids, the this, the that, and they've got it.
You're talking about me?
Yeah. You're Superwoman.
Until I have a mental breakdown. Sorry.
But yeah, I think it is really important to have those sort of, you know, those people, so those case studies. And we work in PR, so we're always working with case studies and those individuals that, you know, will break those stereotypes and show how they do it and show their way and have those conversations. So it's really important in pushing those forward. So it sounds like you're doing great with that. You mentioned Kirk Pengilly. Is he involved? Is he an ambassador now for I'm Just a Man?
He's not an ambassador, but he's I'll give you sort of like a background, then I'll answer that. Like everybody that's ever spoken at I'm Just a Man, it's not like, oh, bring in the celebrity. It's not that. Never. It's never been that. It does help, obviously, as you know, from a PR perspective, but everyone has a lived experience.
Yeah.
They can share a story. Like we had this year and then in 2 years ago, we had Paul Roos come in, AFL, right? But he was there to talk about Danny Frawley. And you know,
that's what
it's like, let's not dodge the bullet. I said, let's be real. You know, and then I had the MC this year who was one of his best friends.
Yeah.
Who he went through his own journey and he'd been at my MC twice. Like we got real. When I met Kirk, it was like he was working with Movember. So when I first started I'm Just a Man, it was purely going to be Beyond Blue. But it was the Movember part through Kirk that I thought where the fun started getting created.
Yeah.
Because Movember has the mustache, right?
Yeah, it does. So it's quite fun.
Yeah, so we thought, how can we bring that in? So it was like the rock T-shirt, face painting. So, and, you know, we put in the music theme, and we've got so much more that we're going to be doing with that next year. So, yeah, that was where Kirk was involved. And so, but from that, I then met Lane Beachley, who's spoken at I'm Just a Man, right? Yeah. And I met Andrew Farriss, who spoke at I'm Just a Man 2 years ago, who wrote all the songs with Michael Hutchence. And I did an interview with him. And it was like, this is an interview that no one does. And it was asking him, how do you feel 23 years later after Michael's passing?
Yeah.
This is not a question that you ask somebody like that. You would normally ask them about, you know, what's your latest album or, you know, how's your day? And that was, he knew those questions were coming. So it was about being real, like we said.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of us have got sons.
Young sons.
What's your key advice from what you've learnt so far? How do we have these, you know, conversations, and, you know, how do we be a more supportive mother, aunt, you know, grandmother, sister, the whole lot? Like, how can females essentially, I guess, help, and what do we look out for, and any advice you can give us?
Do you know what I find has been the biggest thing for me? I'm scared to say the word advice, but I think as mothers and fathers, obviously being present around your children, you know, some boys don't always want to be told what to do, right? So, and I know that. I'm a boy, I'm a male. But I think the biggest thing I understand, it goes right to the beginning, is find a community, a tribe. Like, I think it's really helpful if the boys are around sporting club that espouses the idea of, don't have to be mental health run, but something that honors the mental health. Yeah. Like you said, that magazine, right? It's like you look at that magazine, you go, look at these buff chests and arms. Yeah. It's like, all right, we've got that sort of the nutrition and the physical part. But what about the mental health? How do we honor the mental health? That's more about how do you honor the mind? So if you're around, I know one of my best mates, he's got 2 boys too. We've had, you know, suddenly I'm Just a Man's become a different thing for him too. The boys aren't young now. They're now 10, 11 years old. So biggest thing I've understand, being around a tribe, you know. I think being around a community. And part of that, I think, is where you have these kind of like unconscious mentors, you know, good male role models. And that's why I think about my son. My son's 3.5. And I want him, he sees me around the house playing the guitar. And I want to show them as not just dad playing a guitar and singing, but expressing and honouring and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. And I do think there is a different generation coming through now because, you know, there's different concepts, you know, even around gender fluidity. It's like everything. It's like it's really being broken down, and I think it is changing, and I think identity is changing for sure. So hopefully the new generations coming through will feel that little bit more supportive or able to express themselves. But it's good to sort of, you know how you can support, and maybe it is like helping find a tribe for your brother or your son, or, you know, if they're struggling with that, they may find that themselves. But, you know, perhaps you need to look for that, whether it's something.
Like, have you ever heard of Men's Shed? Have you ever heard of Men's Shed?
Yes, I was thinking
that's
of
a group,
Men's Shed.
You know, as a community, or you might be part of, like if you're young and you want to be part of a business community, like BNI or whatever you're part of, like Westgarth Group. Like it's being part of, you know, being part of a community, and I think a community that meets regularly as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a regularity, I mean, I'm part of a band, so when I'm in the music band, we don't just do music. I actually put in the music in the band I said, one of the reasons I do this is when we perform, I'm going to be mentioning the mental health stuff, not to be martyrs on stage, but just to acknowledge it, and then off to the next song, you know. So we end up having deep conversations amongst the band.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's all in the storytelling. Now, your band, the name of your band?
Oh, it's just starting. It's we're about to launch. It's called Hutch.
Oh.
Hutch.
Here's your big debut now. So clearly you're not just a man. You're actually a great man making a big difference.
I'm a human being. We're all human beings.
No, you're really, look, what you're doing is so admirable. We were so sort of impressed when we were talking about the conversation. And I remember when I first met you, I thought, this is amazing. And I guess what we want to know is, for our listeners, how can they support your charity? How can they get involved? How can they learn more? You know, what do you want them to do as the next step?
We can be backup singers.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's your next gig.
I love the idea of that. I guess there's different ways to support. Next year, we're going to be running our own, when I say program, we're going to trial our own our own version of I'm Just a Man beyond the event. So next year we have a rock and roll themed cocktail party happening. So we're very excited about that. We're going to be trialing a couple of things. So if people want to donate, you're more than welcome to donate. You can get your donations, you get your tax invoice. It's and that would be as easy as imjustaman.com.au/donate or donation. It's very easy to find. It's on the website. But I guess what I'm really looking for is anybody who wants to volunteer and really help us share our message. What we're looking at doing next year, we're looking at introducing in September our own version of facial hair called Side-Temper, which will be the sideburns growing for the guys.
Yeah.
So we want to be different, obviously, to November because they're in a different month. And then we're looking at introducing something in October called Itober, which will be both men and women for that, which will be around what the eyes say about mental health. And it's about connecting more with people, So it's not just lip servicing. It's like, let's connect. What does that really mean? And there's some great ideas that are going to be unveiled with that. And we're looking at people who want to join us and share our message.
Yeah.
Love it.
And become ambassadors themselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to be famous to be an ambassador. So
No, it's the real stories that often mean the most. I mean, both of us working in PR, we work with sort of stories a lot. And it's often those real people that you can relate to. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so do I.
Well, we're definitely going to put all the links up, the website, and we'll be pushing this out on social media. So it's great talking to you, and it's such an achievement what you've done and how you've been able to turn things around for yourself and actually, and just really create something that's got meaning, and it does really fill your cup, doesn't it, to sort of go out there and sort of make a difference.
It does, and firstly, thank you to both of you for having me on today. I really do appreciate it. And you're right, like I have met the most amazing people in this journey because there's yes, of course. I've met some backup singers. Because of, there's no way I would have met different people in AFL or the music industry, and a lot of people, everyone's given up their time. It's not, it's a giving. So it means we give more, and I don't do this on my own. I have a fabulous lady called Anna, and both our partners, my wife and her husband, allow us to do this, and we demonstrate that whole male and man and women side by side concept, bouncing ideas and asking how does a male think female. Like, we're always doing this kind of personal development stuff ourselves without realizing, and then all the people that are around us have had stories. There's no one is not involved with us that don't have stories. And that's the whole idea, is when you share the stories, that next person might share their story and that may help them as well. So
might make a difference. Yeah,
takes a village.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks very much, Jim. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.